our county chaplain.
Yes, sir. Pray if you'd like to. Father, thank you for this day that you've made. Rejoicing and glad in it, and really have appreciative hearts that you put that in it. Walk with an attitude. Talk and communicate, work with one another. Patient through compromise.
Amen. Could we have a motion for approval of the July 17th minutes?
I'll make a motion that we have the minutes approved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Mike Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mike Smith, and my standard disclaimer still applies. These comments are my own as a private citizen. There is no input from any other group or agency. My comments tonight are about the corridor overlay draft. I know this is the first draft, and there will be several revisions. Therefore, my comments will be very broad brush in nature. This is a good start for the County Council requested task. Additionally, it fulfills some of the recommendations of Destination Oconee. Now for my three broad brush comments. Let's start with a favorite topic, rustic elegance. As a committee member stated, this overlay draft is an excellent placeholder for rustic elegance, or whatever term you want to use. I suggest Section E, which is called Design Review, that seems to be a logical place for it. Why my interest in rustic elegance? A large convenience retailer came into the area at Ebenezer and Kiwi School Roads. That area is zoned for the store, but because of its size, it went before the BZA. The neighbors wanted the store to not have their traditional appearance and for it to be compatible with the rustic appearance of that area. A lot of confusion ensued because there was no written guidance for rustic elegance or anything similar. The contractor was willing to revise his plans. He just wanted to know what he was required to do. At the end, he was given a picture by Josh, and the contractor told his designer to make it look like the picture. The county needs this type of guidance included in the corridor or overlay or some other ordinance, because there will be other traffic nodes where this will occur that won't be in the overlay corridor. To move the rustic elegance issue along, I have two separate proposals, 1 page each, for rustic elegance, including the appeal process. There's no need to create a new committee or to have another oversight. Again, I suggest incorporating pictures, which will save a lot of words and avoid confusion. Move on to landscaping. I'm aware of the input from the state about this topic. I suggest you consider using Chapter 38, Appendix A, Paragraph E, for landscaping. It seems detailed and has maintenance and vegetation tree replacement guidance, which isn't currently in the draft. It has already been through the vetting and approval process, so why not use it if it meets the state requirements? Signage, great start. The section titled Prohibited Signs is very good and avoids confusion and extra work and controversy for the planning folks. I hope the commission revisits the height limits in Section H and I. Please recall the PowerPoint presentation I made about signs that also dealt with sign height. Thank you for your time and attention.
Do you have copies of those?
Sure. You want copies of it? I will give you the copy with the tape. Or do you want me to make copies and send them to him, to Adam?
I think if you get them to Adam, he can make copies and he'll be able to give them to us.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we don't like coffee.
Well, I'll let Adam take care of that.
Okay. I'm out of paper.
Mr. Codner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm here tonight representing the interests of the those folks around the lake who are members of Advocates for Quality Development. And I'm here responding really to a couple of items in your pre-work that suggested some wording for the small area zoning method, specifically around the amount of approval needed. I'm concerned that that really would just destroy that whole method. The small area method is really designed just to get the ball rolling on a particular zoning area. It's not the final product. The zoning action really comes from council with input from you folks and lots of public input, lots of opportunities for public comment, that kind of thing. The petition request is just that, a petition asking council to set aside the governmental time to act on this request. It's just a way to show interest. So one thing that was proposed in the handout tonight was saying, okay, you need 100%. Every person who's going to be in the request needs to sign the document. That's just not possible. If you have an area, back when we were doing zoning for residential areas, we had areas several hundred acres, over 1,000 acres in one case, lots of parcels. You just can't get everyone in that area to sign. And it's not because folks are against zoning. Sure, there's a couple of people in there. We had a very low percentage of people who are against what was going on. It's because they aren't home, they're out-of-town owners, a wide variety of issues. We found, in one area, we found the developer had gone belly up for that particular neighborhood. A lot of the properties are in foreclosure, owned by banks, that kind of thing. And you're not going to get a bank to sign a petition. But those kind of properties ought to be included and considered by council in the request. So what we found was 51% was really a very high bar. It was very tough to get to 51%, but it was enough to show a good amount of interest in the area to warrant council going ahead and initiating a zoning activity. The other issue I have is the number of signatures required per parcel. As I said, this is just a request to get the ball going. If you require every owner to sign the petition, you're going to find you just can't get everybody. In some cases, you've got 4 siblings who own the property, 3 of which are out of town. Trying to get all those folks to sign a petition is very difficult. You've also got members of the family may be traveling. It just adds up, and you're going to lose 10% of the signatures if you require all owners to sign. And here, it's just a question of getting the owners, getting some interest shown from that property. I never saw a single instance where you had petitions come in, and you had the process going, and an owner who did not sign a petition for his particular parcel, like wife signed it, the husband didn't, never saw the husband come in and say, hey, I didn't sign that, I don't want any part of it. Just never saw that. If anyone did that, they could always be removed from the petition process. I think if that occurred, you just take them out of the petition and they wouldn't be counted. So, the bottom line is, really need to make this process where it's responsive to the citizens. You need a way for local citizens to address their government around this issue. Now, I've got a lot of experience in this area, and I've got a lot of other things I'd like to present on the issue of small area zoning. Wonder if I might have some extra time next time in the way of a presentation to talk through the whole process. Some of the history, I was talking to Gwen earlier, and between us, we're probably the only ones who have some real good detailed history on how this whole process evolved in practice, how it really happened, how it really occurred, what it takes, and what some of the history is and around how the 500 acre or the 200 acres came up and that kind of thing. So if I could have some time next time, Mr. Chairman, I'd appreciate it. It might be helpful to you in your deliberations.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Staff updates?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We just thought we'd give you a brief update on some projects as we have begun to do on a meeting-by-meeting basis. You'll notice on the zoning and flood review, that's just a summary of the total number since, I think, what is it, the 2-week period? Yeah, 57 new homes, buildings, and mobile homes in that period of time permitted. The hotel references to the new True Hotel that's going in at the Hartwell Village project, actually an out parcel of Hartwell Village, but they are, in fact, I think, holding a site meeting tomorrow with some of the principals involving utilities, site work, that sort of stuff. So it's on track. We'll also be talking with us some more about the design elements that were incorporated into the original development agreement for Hartwell Village to ensure that the design that comes through will have some of those elements included based on the requirements in the development agreement. We have not yet seen an elevation drawing or complete set of facade drawings or materials or any of that sort of stuff for the building, even though parts of the project have been submitted. So we're just in that process right now. And I guess that's about it, other than I think that Adam may have mentioned to you all that the Tenant at the Top folks have done it's actually a coordinated effort. There's a planning process that created a document that's now available. It talks about future development in the upstate, options for development in the upstate, how we might want to do it as a 10-county region. And it's really full of some fascinating information. I think if you're interested in a copy of that document, you don't have one now, I believe you can get it online at the Tenant at the Top site, or we can get you a hard copy. It's about 92 pages. The page you see on the screen is showing you the household issues in terms, I think, what was that, multifamily housing?
Yep, this is for all
Households.
per household.
Yeah, so actually Oconee County was fairly high in terms of percentage in terms of the burden of the household, percentage of household income going to housing cost. It was like third out of the 10-county region, so we thought that was a fairly interesting piece of data, but there's some really good information in the document. We highly recommend you take a look at it when you have an opportunity to.
Was there any indication, did they make sure that that data was not skewed by the value of Lake Holmes versus in our county?
I don't know what the methodology was. An outside firm did a lot of that kind of research and that kind of effort, but fairly sophisticated effort that they did to come to the conclusions that they did. You can see some of the land use maps, future land use maps, that they have shown what build out might look like in the 10-county region through about 2040 maybe?
2040, I believe it was.
2040 based on various scenarios. In other words, whether you use a more compact approach, whether you focus on corridor planning like we're discussing now, where you have modes, or rather areas which are nodes, and you develop those areas and try to keep it compact rather than letting the sprawl sort of model continue. And it shows you the different impacts associated with those different approaches, and it also shows you the costs associated with those different approaches, and it's a fascinating
Would
piece
Tenant
of
at the Top
information.
provide us with a copy of that?
Oh, we have the digital copy, just I'm hampered by our system. I'm not allowed to email out something that's greater than a certain number of megabytes. So it has to be more than that. But I can give a thumb drive, or I can print it off, or I can find the link. We were emailed it in, because we can get large ones, we can send out large ones. But we definitely get you.
We'll get you the link on Tenant at the Top's website too, because I think it's in there.
That'll be good. Thanks. Our next item is the Highways 123 corridor overlay ordinance. Okay, are you gonna, you want to take it from here? On there?
we worked on this ordinance as per instructed by the commission and council, trying to fit all the bits and pieces together. The most complicated issue I put at the very end, under letter N, which is the access, the frontage roads and the curb cuts. I figured we could probably try to work through the rest of the document before spending some time on the access roads and curb cuts, because that is, staff is very for it. We think it's a great idea. Also on your desktop, there's a printout of another 10 at the top publication about how Greenville wishes they would have done some, would have been a little more proactive in their access roads, frontage roads, curb cuts, and now they're kind of hampered by cost and things of that nature. So we're all for it. We're just kind of going to point out some of the challenges that we're looking at, and probably hope to get some more guidance from you regarding those frontage roads. Those decisions we're happy to make. We probably shouldn't be making at a staff level. So we may just go. We can either walk through this if anybody has any thoughts on a step-by-step basis, edits, things of that nature. We'd be happy to hear them. Or is it perfect and we can just go ahead and vote on it?
I know personally, I saw a couple places where basically just a couple edits for spelling, things of that nature, and I think the items that Mr. Smith brought up are well worth looking at, and I think each of us probably have looked through it a little bit and saw a couple different places where they can be edited or added to on there. But overall, I think we're headed down the right road with this, and it looks really good.
The only place where we went off we saw something that wasn't addressed was design review, and that's what Mr. Smith brought up. And we didn't want to go, since, like I said, nothing's been codified as far as the ARE, the Appalachian design standard. We just put in no blank walls, since so many people will be driving through. And we saw what drove that was looking at the backside of Hartwell Village, because we were in the process of approving those site plans. And they have, the front of their building's beautiful. It's got the stone, it's got the brick. The back of their buildings are just a giant blank wall that the church behind it is looking directly at. And although this isn't quite that same situation, if people build behind it, they're gonna be staring at the backs of buildings. And I'm not trying to burden any particular business owner with anything, but if it's being looked at from at least 3 different sides, and if we're parking it in back, we should, and we have such a big anchor that's doing the Appalachian rustic elegance already as the anchor, it kind of serves a good point to maybe look at that, as Mr. Smith pointed out, that try to incorporate some of those design elements. I guess my question would be, regarding the design elements, how far down the rabbit hole would you like for us to go regarding that?
I personally loved the idea of the vegetative. It's already through, it works, it's nice, it's doable. You could simply add it here, the landscaping. Yes, sir, in chapter 38, what's already in there. Is that not the most cost-effective way to
It would seem that would be the way.
Up the back.
Keeps everything natural and things of that nature.
put some shade in there?
I think staff has done a wonderful job of putting together something that's very extensive here. I would like to see that the design review be more detailed. The reason I say that is back in November 9th in 2010, we put together a comprehensive plan as a county and set forth some goals of that plan. The number one goal that was in the comprehensive plan had 6 objectives to it. And objective number 5 was preserve, protect, enhance Oconee County's environmentally sensitive land, scenic views, landscapes, and features. And in that objective was where we found this establishment of scenic areas, promote the beauty, the rural culture, and heritage by establishing an Appalachian Rustic Elegance Design Standards Guideline. I say all that because this is phenomenal in all these details and where the setback should be and where the sidewalk should be and what the building, how many square feet the building might have, but it doesn't go into the detail that our county's comprehensive plan actually set in its number one goal. And so I would like to see us take that design review and enhance that to what our county commissioners, our county residents, and our planning commission had set as within our number one goal.
All right, yeah, I agree. That's why I was a little hesitant. I didn't want to jump on board. So for design review, would this commission like to be the appeals process or look over these things? Or is this should be a staff, just administrative decision if coming through it?
Personally, I think we've worked for a year or more trying to figure out what rustic elegance is, and I think we've beat a dead horse to the point of going in and out of good definitions. I think that the design review needs to be created along with what the comprehensive plan had suggested, and that it be plugged into this information to the best of the ability for Highway 123.
And I would like to thank Mr. Smith for taking the time to put on paper what we haven't been able to put on paper yet. And I hope that when they look over it, they will think enough of it, like I think they will, to put it before us so that we can then just move forward. And to me, if it meets the standards, that's a staff. I mean, to me, if they've met those things, you should be able to simply say yes. And
Administratively approve it?
Absolutely.
All right, so that was a big question. We didn't want to take that step without asking first.
I mentioned one thing about that, and Mr. Root might want to chime in on it too, and that is, you still would have to have an appeals process as we do for everything. I mean, so anyone could appeal a particular regulation or requirement, and whether or not that's the Board of Zoning Appeals or a new architectural review board, which I don't think is, that's a pretty long way to go to get there, but potentially, I guess the Board of Zoning Appeals could do it.
I was going to say, would it be within the realm of the?
It wouldn't necessarily need to come back to you guys, it could go to the board, but I'm just saying there has to be an appeals process in place as part of the process.
Well, and we did kind of hit a roadblock with this, do we develop an architectural review? And I don't know that we need to go to that level, but I do know that businesses will conform to the requirements of the area. They do it every time, and gladly do it if they just know what they need to do from the start. And so I think if we get that area more detailed and more defined, that we're going to have less trouble and less conflict from corporations trying to do what we want them to do already.
We can make that a priority and get you something by next meeting regarding design review and appeals process, things like that, just to look it over. We'll probably hesitate and treading lightly on it, just because we don't want to force our will without asking. But we'll provide you with something that we think is solid and follows the comprehensive plan.
Kind of rolling through another part of this, one of the things I saw that's 10-foot height as far as signage, that works great in Hilton Head. I'm not sure that it works for us, but that's just my personal opinion.
Would that be too high or too low?
I would think that might be a little too low. I actually struggle sometimes coming out of, we've got so many curb cuts and accesses now as it is. If we put a maximum height of 10 feet, I think we're going to have a tough time seeing around it, because the businesses are going to be trying to put their sign closer and closer to the road since they can't put it up high enough. And now we've got visual impairments all up and down the road.
I think the topography is going to dictate a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, since we seem to be getting into it, I'm going to bring up what we have regarding the access roads and frontage, because the information we received from you and information in the letter from the council, there is some conflicting back and forth. It's a Rubik's Cube, and every time we turn it, it turns something else. So we're just, we have this little thing for the access kind of put together to show you our issues. And this is kind of where we're leading. This conversation seems to be heading that way regarding signage, and that's part of this. And we're just going to go over the options, economics, the current code for the road, which impacts the signage, vegetation, setbacks, all those other things. This is kind of the big piece in the room. So this is just to overview the corridor that we're talking about here for anyone in the audience. It's that same stretch we've been talking about. There's 4 options for this corridor as far as it goes regarding the road. I just kind of skipping ahead of it a little bit, but Oconee County can buy the land on everyone's right of way, and we can build and maintain the roads. That's one option. And there may be more than 4 options. These are just the 4 we have to come up with. So if you all think of something else, please let us know. The option 2 is that we mandate an easement. A 50-foot right of way, that's our county road standard, is 50 feet. And then we'll build and maintain everything, including stormwater facilities, and roads and whatnot. Third option would be county mandates an easement of 50 feet, and then we'll issue a special assessment to the property owners and let the parcel owners pick up the tab for the road and the maintenance over a course of whatever time frame that may be. And then the 4th option would be a 66-foot right of way, which is a private road, which is county road standard for private roads. And then the property owners will build and maintain the easement. None of these is perfect, but those are the 4 options we have for building frontage roads. They all tie into all the other, the previous 15 pages all get tied into this, and all get adjusted because of the decisions made here. So those are our 4 options that we see. If there's other options, please tell us. The economics of it are, I asked the road and bridges today, and just the cost of the asphalt, in the county's opinion, is about $85 a linear foot, or about $450,000 a mile for, to build a road to county standards with a 50-foot right-of-way. With that right-of-way, it's cleared out, completely buzzsawed down. Nothing should sit inside that right-of-way. So we're talking about encouraging the Appalachian, rustic elegance and adding vegetation to the buildings, but we're clear cutting it for 50 feet, pushing the buildings back at least 50 feet off the 123 where it sits down. 123 has a 40 to 100 foot wide shoulder, depending on where you are along it. So it's quite a bit farther off the right of way if we add this frontage road. And the reason why it has to be that far is because what our current code says. Now we can of course adjust this and add it in there, but I didn't want, I'm not an engineer, we're not engineers, I can't say that it's safe for us without us consulting engineers to reduce those right of ways, those clear areas. So that's just something we have to look at further. It's considered a minor local road, is what the access road will be. And then this is the ordinance for private commercial road. It has to be 66 feet with 12-foot lengths. That's just the way the code sits now. It's just copy and paste it out of there.
Go ahead, and then
The road where the dentist office is there, they have the little road. From the edge of the road to the other side of that road, it's only like 50 feet. That's from the 123 to the other side of the road is like 50, just over 50 feet. It's not as wide as you were stating in that area.
Is that possible it predates, because I wasn't, you mentioned you saw that.
It's been there for a while. I mean, I don't know how long have they had that there?
About 8 years.
Yeah, it's been less than 10.
Yeah.
But it's, I was looking at it with the administrator and we measured and it's like 50 feet.
So that's a private road. This would be basically.
Right, that
public
is,
private road.
yeah.
That's a driveway.
That's a private road that goes from one end of the property all the way to the other end, all the way across the front. The actual land that the business is on is like 0.7 acres. So overall, you take the boundaries of that property where the doctor's office or dentist's office is sitting, it's less than an acre, including the road. So there's not a lot of property required to have an access road and still have a business.
Yeah, I think after mapping it out and looking at, and I have a visual for that, I think you're right. I think the majority of the properties along here we can facilitate putting the front road in. Some, it doesn't work, and I can visualize that for you. But like anything, we can just adjust the Rubik's Cube here to make things work. I think it's quite possible for this to be
And we could also put these roads in and access existing roads that are turning off of 123. In some cases, not all, but
pretty
in
close to
some.
intersections, that's all. If you put it right against the front property line, it'll may come out a little close to an existing intersection.
We can't be no closer than the one right there at Old Clemson Highway and that first property after the gas station. I mean, that's 300 feet. So, I mean, there is ways that we could do this and not have any curb cuts off of 123 and have the access road go all the way across, and you turn off of 123 onto a road that's already there, access the road, and get back on 123 at a point where the other road turns, you know. In other words, use two existing roads and connect them across the properties. Would be one way instead of having curb cuts off of 123. But there may be places where you have to, but on some of them, we looked at several different spots, and you can actually do that by connecting two of the side roads, I call them. Instead of have curb cuts on 123, you can just go across those right in front of the properties.
Sure.
And do that.
We can certainly look at that. Sir?
I'd like us to consider, having right turn lanes at all the curb cuts and, prohibit left turns, except at, traffic lights. Maybe incorporate U-turn lanes at the traffic lights.
That's actually we would have to look and see, because it would cause some U-turns to happen. So if it's right in, right out, U-turns would happen. So if you had a turn in lane and like a merge lane almost, that would definitely help alleviate some of the traffic. People grandma getting rear-ended by someone driving too fast. However, it does create a U-turn situation, which I don't know if that's, we just have to do a little research to figure out if that's safer or not safer.
You have to work with DOT on these issues too.
Which was one of the things I was gonna say. A lot of what we're about to get into are really things that are engineering studies and or DOT controlled. I think that it may be above the scope of what this committee's responsibility, obligation, or right to deal with involve. I do fall back on what county council in 2010 and again in 2015 said that we should be doing. And to get into some of these level of details, I think is above and beyond getting something out there that starts the process of, if you build a new building, what should it look like? How should it function? I do think that you use the example over by Harbor Freight, over by Walmart. We don't have anything over there that says you must have a frontage road, and yet they've done a good job of sharing access for parking lots. You look at the Planet Fitness and BI-LO, they've done a good job of sharing parking lots. Perhaps we could go as far as to some of these connecting properties to put in some ideas or concepts that say, where you do a curb cut or access, if at all possible and approved by engineering and DOT, it should be sited near a property line so that the next business over can then simply widen that curb cut, and we put in some ideas or concepts. But to start getting into, oh, everybody needs to have a road frontage or some, who's going to be responsible for paying for a road frontage, I don't think our topography allows for it everywhere. I think we've got too many businesses already in place, and I don't think it's our job here. That's just my opinion.
I'd like to point out that the businesses you're talking about have their major parking in front of the business, which we're trying to prohibit. If we're gonna have parking lots serve as a frontage road, but they're around behind the building, then we probably need to provide a back street on the rear of the property.
So which is the front of the business and which is the back of the business? Because you go down to IHOP and Publix in Clemson, and the back of the business is what faces the road, and so now we're defining the front entrance is actually in the parking lot, which is in the.
Publix The Publix faces the road.
But IHOP doesn't, and the sandwich shop doesn't, and the bank doesn't. All those don't face the road, they face the Publix.
And they were built that way to have parking in the front of their.
Correct, so parking is in front of the business, so all of a sudden, we come in and say no parking in front of the business, we're making an assumption that the front of the business is facing 123. I think we need to be careful of our definitions.
I just think we need to allow the business to park wherever they want to have parking. If it's in the front facing 123, or if it's on the side facing whatever's over there, or if it's in what we would consider the back, since we're on 123, if it's back there and that's what they want the front to be, you let the business dictate where they need to park. We don't need to be telling them, no, you can't park here because it don't look good. Businesses want to have cars parking where people can see them, to where people think, well, hey, I'm doing great business, let me go in and check this place out. If we mandate that they all have to park on the other side of the building, away from 123, whether it be the front, the back, the side, or whatever, then we're eliminating that part of their business, their advertisement, to be parking and basically hiding the cars from 123.
Can I interrupt for just a minute? I think these 15 pages are pretty darn good. And I think if we're gonna try and get anything done, if we get into frontage roads, a lot of other things, we're never gonna get anything done. So I think we take these 15 pages. I mean, these 15 with some modifications could work for the other corridors. Because we cannot write one ordinance for all these corridors. This comes pretty close, I think, as long as we leave out frontage roads. And I think frontage roads on 123, that train's left the station. 123 is 123. This is probably not gonna affect 123 that much, but it could affect 28, 59, 76, some of the other ones that we probably really need to deal with. So it'd be my thing to, let's table, my opinion would be to table the frontage roads and that kind of stuff. Let's, if everybody's in agreement, take these 15 pages that were well-written, easy to read, and easy to understand, and let's say, okay, this is for 123, these could be adapted to sections of 28, 76, whatever, and kind of go from there, or else we're not gonna get anywhere. I mean, we're gonna be sitting here for 6 months, you know, because with the I mean, we don't live in Florida where everything's flat and we can, you know, I mean, on 59, you know, most of 59, you can't do frontage roads. So we're gonna. Right, and, yeah, we could, then we could come back to that, you know, we could always come back to it and add it. And, you know, we can take Mr. Smith's, review those, if they fit in here, as long as it doesn't say Architecture Review Committee, let's go for it. On fences, I think that should be 4 foot high instead of 3 foot high, in my opinion. You know, 4 foot high is the height around a swimming pool. 3 foot high, anybody can jump over. You know, the statement, sorry, now I'm rambling on, but statement number 4, the development of retail commercial centers or villages is favorable over commercial strip development in the highway. I don't know what, I mean, I know what that means, but I don't know why that's in there. Other than we're just stating we don't want a strip development, but are we discouraging people from building a strip development?
I think it was on the PowerPoint that was presented to you by my predecessor, who had the box with the check by it. So I try to incorporate as much as from that into this as possible. I can take that out of the ground.
I'm not gonna lose sleep over that. I just question, you know.
I think we did that because we kept looking at Easley.
Yeah.
There are so many strip malls that have been, you know, 1 out of the original 9 businesses are there, and the rest of them have turned into either empty, fallen-in places or hangers out spots. So they were looking more for the kind of development like where Publix is, where you've got a group that have worked together to have everything that you need and make it convenient and safe, versus somebody that throws up something cheap and then leaves.
All right. And then on same page, number 4, sidewalks.
Can I stop you just for a second, Brad?
No, I'm on a roll.
I know you are. But I just want to get to a point where I think we're all in agreement that we want to table the road frontage, just have that part of the package at this point. Just try to keep this moving along.
Okay, also move.
And then if we can go back to start, I know it's 15 pages, but if maybe we can just go back to page 1, and we can just go through each of them, make each
Okay.
notes, and then we can give that to them to recycle.
So we are making a motion that we are changing the following items? Is that what we're doing? And then listing the following items for staff to change?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we direct staff to make the following revisions and bring them back to us.
Wait a second.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
And then, so we're going through those?
Yes, so let's start back at
Page 1.
page 1.
I'd also like staff to have the liberty to make sure that whether it's legal, probable, or this should be or should not be in there, please use your freedoms to do so,
Gosh, don't do anything illegal.
regardless of what we may or may not
Why we
want
got
to be
Mr.
in
Reeves
there.
sitting there. Right, let's roll.
Okay.
Or else we're gonna be here till midnight.
Sure. Has everybody pretty much looked over, reviewed this? Anybody have any notes on page 1?
My first notes start with E, no notes on page 1, no.
Okay. So everybody okay? We're gonna move down to E, design review?
Design review, I'd like to see that detailed, because that's why we're even talking about this, is because it was directed in 2010 and redirected in 2015.
Should I use the language Appalachian Rustichellians? Is that?
I don't know that the directive was to state that specifically, but it was it did state our natural to develop processes for rural and cultural heritage by establishing policies of a rustic elegance design standard and guidelines.
We need to remove that term.
I don't know that the term is applicable, but
It's not
the-
definable. But another phrase or something on there.
whatever the phrase, I think that E needs to encompass that.
Gotcha.
And- Well, and I was gonna say, and it also it needs to encompass that, it needs to encompass that it is per y'all's approval, if it meets the standards, appeal to the design review board, and bring in the landscaping from appendix A. No, I mean, excuse me, not a design review board, the zoning appeals,
The BZA.
not the BZA, yeah. Sorry, no, I didn't mean to say that word. I apologize. I've looked at too many pages today.
Okay.
I would, under F1, that front facade, parallel to 123, please review that. That goes along with that Publix and the IHOP and all those over in Clemson that are actually facing away from because they're doing a shared parking lot. Same would apply with the way Verizon and Staples and Planet Fitness, those are not in parallel, but they do share a drive, and I think that that's probably the most important thing, is limited curb cuts and shared drives are more important than if everybody faces the road.
But that goes back to, no blank walls.
Which would fall under our design standards.
That is covered in the no blank walls. They have to should do something, 75% of any wall.
Right, all that would go under design standards. I was going under F where it said the buildings must be front facing.
And you don't need that because it completely contradicts the sentence ahead of it. It says all buildings shall front onto a public or private street or share a frontage line with a square or other similar common.
Yeah, true.
Can you say, I mean, does that not negate
Just-
the next sentence?
Just be aware of that and however that needs to be dealt with.
Clean this up, guys.
Front internally on some.
I think the intent was to prevent us looking at the backs of buildings
Right.
along 123. The intent was before, I'll definitely enough so it doesn't require any interpretation or discussion. It'll be done.
Any other comments up to where we are? Okay, continue down. You
we're on
consensus.
page 4, is everybody in agreement with 4 foot high?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm in disagreement with that. A 3 or 4 foot high wall is fine for an architectural landscaping embellishment, but, there's private homes here as well as, commercial places. People may desire or require fences for screening, fences for,
This
This
excludes,
this is only for commercial.
this
Has no
excludes
application.
private homes.
And it's
Application
also
of
just for
private,
new,
so.
existing personnel, just houses, businesses, or they're grandfathered in. We can't make them do any of this. So this is all for new
we can
construction.
prevent them from putting up a privacy fence.
No,
And
I don't know.
But again, residential is not applicable to any of this.
Correct.
Sidewalks. I thought the county didn't like sidewalks. Or prohibited sidewalks.
And I don't wanna speak for the county. I think the tide is turning on that, and, chapter 26 is gonna reflect that. I don't wanna say in short order, but pretty soon. So,
Okay.
it's my understanding.
So we're gonna have sidewalks to nowhere.
Sidewalks to nowhere?
Yeah. On new development, we're gonna have sidewalks and then it stops at the end of the property line.
I guess I'd have to have a as-applied situation, as I understand for sidewalks, since we're dealing with just right here, is within sidewalks that would be serving the development.
Not a continuous sidewalk going down 123,
Okay.
just per project.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, just for
Maybe
the,
I missed it.
Well, the intent would be, this is with the background, looking at the county council, letter, regarding frontage roads, so there's language that kind of pertains to that. So there would be frontage road sidewalk connecting the adjacent landowners and things of that nature. That would be the hope and intent. But as you're most likely correct, sir, it's probably a sidewalk nowhere, because people will be, there's so many missing
Yeah.
parcels that'll have that. And I believe you actually asked last time how many parcels were developed. So right now, there's 131 parcels in the corridor. As of 2016, 87 of them are already built on.
Not many left.
It says sidewalks shall be required on both sides of public or private streets within a commercial retail development. The way I'm reading this is it's required to put a sidewalk out near the road. No? Am I reading this wrong?
And maybe that's the problem, because that's not the way I read it, so that.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I'm right. I'm saying that means.
Okay, well then, this could be changed to sidewalks within the
Yeah,
development.
it can be read different ways.
Yeah,
I think that's the intent.
Mm-hmm.
okay. So, okay,
So
that
maybe
cleans
clear
that
it
up. I'm good on page 5.
I think that the only thing I would add is B on interrupted surface parking areas would be that you could break it up with landscaping. You know, because Bilo would look a whole lot better if they had twice or 3 times as
Islands in
many
there?
trees.
So, break up the parking.
Break up a large parking area.
I do have.
And I don't know
have
what large
that
is.
A little further down. I believe.
Okay, okay.
You have it under A, perimeter parking area planning, is that
I believe so, yes, sir.
pertains to it?
It says parking areas with more than 20 spaces shall be broken by buildings or following the standards for perimeter parking area. Is that planting located,
Yes.
is that, sorry,
It's
so
at
it
least a
refers
3
to that?
Yes, ma'am. It's
Okay.
at least a 3-foot wide strip.
Okay.
3 foot's good enough for grasses and brushes. It's not really great for trees, but, we could adjust that size. But 3 foot seems like it wouldn't be an undue burden on a property owner to put in like a 3-foot planter.
Yeah, okay.
In this process, please make sure that we're not prohibiting restaurants from coming in. I mean, you have a place, again, like a Fats Cafe, they've got their parking out by the street. They're going to want it in the street as opposed to behind the building, or they're going to turn the building around where the parking, you go straight from the parking lot into the front door. So that there's nothing in here that's in conflict with where somebody must park.
So it is in conflict, because we want, so as we looked at once again, I took the council letter and the commission's recommendation, I looked at, I kind of put parking towards the rear and 45% on the side, something like that, with, once again, the thought of a frontage road being in there. But if we're taking the idea of a frontage road out, we can just interconnect, that's called a stub out. So when the parking, so 123 parking lot, your restaurant, so you have your parking lot here, you just connect it, as you all mentioned, just stub it out, so the next person that builds, or if perhaps you get a existing business, say, all right, fine, let's connect here, it would work as a de facto driveway, it wouldn't require nearly as much infrastructure.
Encouraging that shared drive approach as well.
Do we have anything to orchestrate with? So like say, if you do this, we'll let you do that?
No, but I bet you can come up with something.
It just makes
Because I think
sense when you have
yeah,
a,
there needs to be something to give them in exchange for that, like more parking in the front if they're sharing and
I
if
think
they
you could just write the language about, in fact, there's some reference to it on topographical issues and stuff like that, but you could write language in more general terms to say that there is zoning administrator or whatever the official is has these
authority to.
flexibility within certain situations.
encouraging certain things as
modify-
well.
to modify the requirement. But I do think that, and we've got a memo on this right behind the 15 pages is a memo about the issues that I think you guys have already figured out, that frontage roads are a tough element. But in context with that, it says might want to not just encourage those internal connections, but require a stub out to make those internal connections possible in the future, if you have a situation that could permit that. In other words, the adjoining property isn't developed yet.
Has
Guy
similar
here-
elevations,
Yeah, and
et
the
cetera,
guy
et
next
cetera.
door is building his development and require him as part of his building permit process or approval process to allow for that stub out at the property line that would allow for the internal connection for the next property.
When available, yes. Any
Right.
wording that
So
talks
you
about
still have
that.
flexibility because it will depend on whether that's even an available option.
Do you need that direction, or are y'all good with
Yeah.
that?
This is making
Y'all
notes
agree
on
with
there.
Right in there,
Yeah.
and you can-
The only other thing I see is that sign.
The sign height?
I was thinking that we had dealt with signs. Apparently, we didn't cover this part.
Starting at five?
Yes, sir.
Or you got a presentation in the here?
I'm sorry, in H, we're looking at,
Letter C?
C, some sign heights. Did we not cover that back? I've slept since then, but.
When we were talking about billboards and the
Did we
signs
cover
on it.
any kind of commercial sign heights and sizes and things like that in that context?
Once again, this was done with the thought of us having a frontage road in front, so we would have, a complication of the matter is that who's gonna, if we have a 50-foot right of way in front of someone's business, and all the businesses are using one entry point, where's the sign go? Everyone wants a bit, all of a sudden, you want a sign in front of your business, so where's the sign go? So once again, that's why the height was limited, that way we wouldn't have, a Dollar Tree sign sitting on top of a McDonald's sign sitting on top of a, go to the sky at that matter. So it was a kind of
Gotcha.
arbitrary number to talk about, but since frontage roads aren't gonna be kind of integrated at this juncture, we could probably adjust that or remove that, or what?
Just it so that signs are permitted at the stub outs, or,
You'll be able to build anything they wanted to on their, property, so long as it's set back 5 feet. So if they're putting stuff out towards, they'd be running, facing the next business down, they wouldn't be facing 123, is that correct?
I'm just trying to make sure so that if you had, all right, let's say you've got Philo, Planet Fitness, whatever, going down that mall right there. You've broken it up with trees, you've set it aside so that you can drive from one to the other, but you've got to go around these little islands. Okay, and maybe somebody can't see where Planet Fitness is. So if the sign is not within so many feet of their building, if you can only turn it in one place, they might want to put the first 2 signs there and the next 2 signs at some center island a little bit further down so that you can pull in and say, oh, okay, I need to go to the next little driveway to get to them.
So allowing or encouraging people to put signage in the interconnected driveway. So this isn't about frontage road, this is the interconnected driveways, allowing people to put
Right.
signage. They would be allowed to, as is. I mean, I could probably find some way to put some regulation on that way they don't have a full-blown highway sign sitting right there. I doubt they would, but, we could certainly look at that as far as, they'd be allowed to, as is, as long as it's off the,
As long as it's
off
off
the, setback.
Okay.
One thing to think about in terms of, I think one of the issues tonight is about multifamily and group development, that sort of thing as well. And if you put development in strip, I'm gonna call it strip, group development context where, like you say, you've got a Walmart and you've got some other out parcels and you've got these other, and they're all part of what we define as a group development. Just allow one large freestanding sign, each business can on that sign, and then they'd have their own facade signs as well. That would be one way to do that in those kind of situations. But when you have individual lots, everybody's on a different, not a group development kind of situation. I don't know how you get around allowing each one to have its own freestanding sign.
I'm with Mike. Mr. Root, didn't we just address this with
Well,
this?
we didn't really get the height in it. We didn't make that change with the sign ordinance. Back at it.
So-
Something that was discussed. but-
Maybe you all come back with something that seems to make sense. Also something that can be passed by county council. Looking at with some things of you can't have this kind of sign, and you can't have that kind of sign, and it can't do this, and it can't do that. That in and of itself is gonna make every business in town upset over something. And so I don't ever see that getting passed by county council if everybody's gonna be upset over something about it.
Pulsating signs are a safety issue.
Yes.
That has some legs to it because it can
They
be
need to
linked
be outlawed.
directly to.
Anything that however we're currently dealing with it, or things that you see as a need that we feel like can get passed, then let's,
And some of these LED lights are a safety hazard because they're like bright green and they're really bright. And at night, they'll almost blind you. It's worse than being,
so what's our rule now?
I have no idea.
We don't have anything that covers it now. And I think that's the notion with this, is to make it this is gonna be more restrictive than what we have on the books.
Yeah, I would think you'd leave that in there.
Okay.
Going with the Appalachian, Rusty Elliott's, once again, it's not, it would look, I'm just kind of envisioning, we mentioned a certain other town down the road, and they have, everything they want to on 123, except for that Pete sign, which is somehow out of compliance. It is, like, that is nice. Anyways, I was a little, this one we kind of added more stuff to, because
Y'all sold me. I'm good. I retract what I said.
Is there any one particular item that you've heard or bring up before, that you think is just a non-starter with this? Please tell me, it's easy enough to take out.
Should we allow temporary, for sales or special events? I don't see any, we got no, but
There
if
was,
somebody's having a week-long sale or, some time period for temporary banners, flags, or.
on page 11, number 7, it says holiday lighting displays, lighting for approved temporary events and directional lighting during construction are exempt from these requirements, provided they do not exceed the maximum foot candle and do not, whatever.
I think we're ready to vote. Or we already voted. We're just telling instructing
So
now.
that would give them permission to do that for their temporary lighting, or Christmas lighting, or a temporary sale,
Or
or
we could
whatever.
do that with something with similar, we could put in you can have a temporary sign, sale, what have you, for a given amount of time.
I guess the question there would be approved, do they have to come up, if they're gonna have a sale, do they have to come up and get approval from you to have a sale?
That kind of puts a burden on
Yeah,
it.
that might be.
Well, like you say, just put a time limit on that, and I think you've got it covered, because it clearly says they can do it for special events. You would just need and you've got it written right there in 7.
Make a similar provision for signs as you have for lighting.
Well, they
Right.
need a permit for that temporary sign? The way it's only there for 30
No,
days?
just- No,
Okay.
There's Mr. Chairman, can I go back, because Mr. Kisker's comment had me thinking, I read back over the sidewalk comment, and I think I'm confused too. When you read the first, everything up to sidewalks shall be required on both sides of the public and private streets within the commercial retail development. I think I had in my mind, and I read it a certain way, to rereading that sentence, it does think, all right, this could be read to impose a burden across streets outside of the development almost. And I don't know, is that something you all want reworded?
Yeah,
Yes.
Just
I
make
think
sure it
sidewalks,
doesn't put a burden on
Yeah,
anybody.
because I think what the goal is to attach, make sure you have sidewalks so pedestrian traffic is good and safe inside that commercial development, right?
Correct.
And if we can connect commercial developments, if that's the
Great.
situation, then have sidewalks for those. But we're not trying to
Yeah.
put
And those are
big
essentially
stuff.
internal,
Yeah.
and they're not in the public right of way, they're internal.
The only thing, other thing would be on page 8, if you put the word hand in front of the word painted, then you've got hand painted or written signs, meaning hand painted or handwritten. That would make it, because painted, I mean, a lot of signs are painted and they're beautiful. You know, so you want the hand painted to make sure that it covers, you know, help wanted or will work for food. That's what-
You're not letting me put a sign up?
Handwriting
I know, but in other words, you know, we don't want hand-done signs. We won't, in any way, shape, or form.
Apparently, I can't do what I was, no longer can stand on the corner.
I'm telling you. Leave it to Glenn.
I'm not a foot candles expert, but I assume you pulled those from
I
Big
think
15.
the Waycraft County one and their standard is kind of, the intent of that was to put people on notice that they can't just light it up like Los Angeles. I mean, that's the thing. They're in Lancaster County and the other ones we looked at, you had to hand a lighting expert to come, like, verify, like, this shall not. This is more of a self-check. I can put a word in there that requires them to get a lighting study done, which is done a lot of other places. So it wouldn't be completely lit up like daytime and nighttime. And all light stays focused on what you're focused on. And because there's so much topography that we've noticed, if they don't have any sort of shields or directive to not shine it out on the road, it's just gonna line, you're gonna be staring at, like car lot lights for the entire distance. That was really the intent for it, but I can't put the words in that requires them to submit some additional paperwork, if that's something that you don't think of.
Some codes just require that these things be internally directed, so that they're, you know, that they're not, that to the eye, they're not extending beyond the boundary.
I have a question. Do we know, like, a typical street light, what foot candles that puts off?
Off the top of my head, I do not, but yes, I mean, there's a whole,
Because we don't want it to be a safety issue where a parking lot is dimly lit and then you're having people mugged at night or whatever. We need to make sure that it's, you know, high enough that we don't have a safety issue.
I believe the intent, because the part of this, where I pulled it from in Lancaster County, the area along the corridor had car lots, things of that nature. And I think, and you all know car lot lighting, it's huge. So a lot of it is directed to keep the light on property. So you can light up your property basically like daytime, as long as it's focused at your property and not bleeding out onto the streets. And even though we have such a large right of way and large shoulder with 123, it still helps to keep the light on focus. So yeah, definitely, it's safety definitely.
So are we good on that one?
As far as I know, we're good there.
I'm on page 14.
You skipped ahead.
No, I said,
The only thing I had was on 14, I had a question, the mitigation. Any canopy trees with a caliber at 4 feet height greater than 12 foot inches? Is that, okay. I just want to make sure.
It
Old-
is so
old
good
lady
about
English teacher,
catching
you
the,
know.
That's the
Like
teacher.
an English teacher.
I have a question on this, you know, is it mitigate, you know, saying you can't remove the trees, or you gotta replace, but it's not, I mean, if somebody has a fully wooded lot, obviously we have to clear for a building. The way I'm reading this, if we go in there and clear for a building, clear for a parking lot, and clear for, you know, all those trees have to be replaced. the way I'm reading this, unless I missed a sentence.
So the 12, so it's a 24-inch, it's a 2-foot around tree. It's what it is. The 12 inches is basically just the 24. So it's pretty big. I can make it a larger tree. The idea was, let's say I'm keeping native vegetation species, I can increase that. Increase it, we can make it a administrative review, whereas they can cut down whatever they want to if they prove that they have to. The objective is to get them to not clear cut the lots.
Can you simply put some stuff over in the rustic elegant side that defines, keep natural vegetations, enhance vegetations, et cetera, and then make it a review on your part of, hey, because I can't imagine a developer not being able to come in and say, we're putting a building here and we need to clear this area to do so.
It says that on page 13.
Does it?
It says, all required setbacks and buffer yards shall be used as tree preservation areas. Retention and protection of large trees shall be required for all development within the highway corridor. But it's talking about in setbacks and buffer yards. I don't think they're talking about the whole lot.
The intent, I don't think, is to say you can't cut. I don't think we have to replace it.
It's not everything. So perhaps 12 inches or 24 inch diameter is too small. How do you all feel about only cutting down the trees that are necessary for parking and the building footprint?
Yeah, I think you'd be doing very well there.
Or not. I mean,
Landscaping and parking.
I just don't think they should be able to clear cut a lot, just like they did down there where the Hartwell Village. They've clear cut pretty much all that in there.
Right, it was
None of
all,
the native
exactly.
trees are there, and now, in order to get anything back, they're gonna have to replant. To me, it's cheaper to leave some of the native trees instead of going buying the trees and replanting them.
Well, they've moved a lot of dirt down there too. They have
Well, yeah,
changed
but
the
I'm just
topography of that
saying-
entire thing, so they may have had to get rid of the trees because they brought it down so much.
But in a
Exactly.
case like that, then yes, they should be required to plant some native trees and greenery or whatever back on the property. If it's where they have to, well, like the industrial park over here on Highway 11, I mean, they've moved some dirt.
Yeah.
But it should be the native trees we're wanting to save, and even if they have to cut everything down, they should have to go back in and plant them again in the right of way or something to where it's not interfering with their construction, but they have to plant so much back in there.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, number 3 reads, any canopy trees with caliper. So if those are removed, I mean, I not have enough space to, that it might be a very heavily mature piece of property, and there could be 50 of those trees, and there's not room to replant 50
Yep.
trees of similar style. That's all I'm saying is, I'm against clear cutting, and let's leave as much nature as we can, but there might not be enough room to mitigate based on how I'm
And
reading
can
this.
that be y'all's job again?
Yeah,
to
just a
mitigate
staff
that?
review,
Give us
kind of.
a
Yeah.
Staff review for
We're already
percentage of.
for the lake resident buffer, right? The first 25 feet of any lake line, we're already the review board.
Right.
Staff review board. That's where this kind of came from, was we're already looking at trees by the lake, and looking at trees over here.
Yeah.
Again, I think if you tell a developer the intent is da-da-da-da, that the developer and you can come to a very reasonable understanding of there's 75 trees within 25 feet of the road here. We need to take out 24 of them to be able to see what we've got, what business we have back here.
I had the impression the way this was crafted, the intent was to focus on the areas that are set back in buffer yard areas, not the over.
That's kind of what I thought too, was that.
Still need to be able to see what that business is. I mean, this is a commercial district. It's not a residential front yard.
Well, there is Hilton Head.
What's that? Yeah.
But anyway, I think my point being that it wasn't intended to say you had to replace everything that you take out on property.
Yeah, I don't think that was how it was intended, but that's how it could be read.
I think the word any needs to disappear.
Okay.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, I think again, I think that could be cleaned up pretty easily.
Thank you for such a wonderful job that y'all have done to give us something that we can look at rather than trying to create and just X things out.
So we're done there. So with that, you have enough to be able to bring it back to us in due time and review.
So just to comments that you all have asked for, regarding specific business guys. We do nothing with, we're gonna remove and access to curb cuts for the time being. And we're gonna get back to you, hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have a product to look at, edit further, or
Sounds wonderful.
Fantastic. Thank you.
oh, and then, I'm sorry, one more thing I included was this, additional page that says Edwards at the top. That's from SCDOT, if we had some, members mentioned, possibly looking at taking over 123 for landscaping, things of that nature, because right now it's all clear cut. It is possible, there's just an agreement that SCDOT is fine with it, you all, if you wanna pay for it, we can dress it up. So it is a possibility, if we wanna take a section of it, if we wanna say this is a grand entrance or do something with it, it is possible, it just requires an agreement and money. That's all I have.
County has plenty of money.
What's next?
Staff presentation on multifamily and group development.
Okay. I was enthralled by the previous. Okay, thank you, Chairman. We're looking at, multifamily development was the term we were talking about in relation to primarily the control-free district, and whether or not setbacks, should be necessary in control-free district. Reason for kind of focusing on kind of group development scenario is that within that context, if you create these various districts, I say districts, standards for different types of development, you can sort of get away from worrying about what the setbacks are control-free, because you're focused on specific standards for a type of development. For example, if you have a section in your code that addresses standards for developing multifamily housing. By standards, I mean things like external setbacks from the property lines, open space, lot area. You might want to have a minimum lot area for development, maybe, maybe not. Recreational areas, which a lot of multifamily complexes require in many jurisdictions. So it's things like that, those kinds of criteria that you can apply and then kind of administratively address each project as it comes with those standards. And the advantage for the developer is that it's a clear set of standards. They know exactly what is required of them when they come in with that plan. Right now, if you do a multifamily development in control-free, I have no idea what the standards are, to be frank with you, except what the road and bridge standards are, and if you're doing a subdivision situation. Otherwise, we've got nothing but setbacks. That's it. So, in other words, the developer and us, we're not clear that what standards we're dealing with on a case-by-case basis.
In a subdivision of X size, is there a green space standard in place? So we don't have a standard on any of those other residential components. I think that this came up originally simply because we were trying to figure out in control-free, is there a setback or is there not a setback when you go to put a building? And our problem is that when you connect buildings together, right now, there's not something that says this marriage wall doesn't have to be 20 feet apart.
And you can address that within the context of those kinds of standards. You can just say, if you wanted to allow zero lot line development, then you write the language in that section. It basically says, setbacks are not required along one property line, whatever.
You all are the experts, and I definitely want to defer to y'all, but I hate to, okay, we're in rural residential, we already have it zoned, and there are setback requirements under rural residential, and then, oh wait, we have this other elephant over here called multifamily, and it requires this whole other thing. Right now, all we're trying to accomplish is to be able to build it in a control-free scenario or in any other scenario. Do we need to get to this level of detail today? Are we running into problems other than the fact of this marriage wall situation?
Control-free is the only one that doesn't have a density requirement or density limit. So like lake residential is 4 per acre, four dwelling units per acre. So looking at control free is different, as we all know, it's just a different beast, because there's no, you can put as many houses per acre as you want to, although we have setbacks and parcel requirements, so we can address it, as a,
When a developer is coming in, the way I've always seen it is a developer wants to try to make their product appealing and attractive, and they're not necessarily building a Detroit high-rise next to a parking lot next to another Detroit high-rise. Do we really need to do anything with this other than determine setbacks within a control-free with a caveat that says multifamily marriage walls don't have to fall within that or something? In other words, do we need to really get involved in this right now based on issues that the planning department is having? We're not able to overcome this hurdle because we don't have anything in writing.
I think we instructed them to
Mhm,
come
we did.
up
Oh,
with
did
a
we?
way, yeah,
Okay.
to say, okay, I want to build a multifamily, structure in this zone, whether it's, whatever zone, and say, okay, I'll fit everything else, but I don't have to follow that because the walls are gonna be side by side versus a setback of so many feet for each wall, you know, between the buildings. And that was what, I mean, you put it beautifully in a sentence, basically, I think. It wasn't written, but we talked about, or Adam, maybe you did. You simply said, under multifamily, these things work,
Gotcha.
okay?
And can that apply,
and it
that
does that
sentence go
marriage.
within each
Yes.
one, each category of zoning?
you know, is there any thoughts on, green space requirements? Because you brought that up, open space requirements, things of that nature,
I think a developer today is trying to do those things to enhance the marketability of that product. Unless we start seeing rogue developers coming in and just not accounting for anything, unless I'm wrong, I would think that the developer's gonna say, hey, to make my product appealing, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. All I need to know what my setbacks are.
Okay, that's one of our problems we have in the county now. We're waiting till something happens, and then we go, oh my God, I should have thought about this 10 years ago.
Don't disagree.
We need to set up rules now for the future, because these homes are coming. The multifamily, the condos, all this kind of stuff is coming to Oconee. It's inevitable, anyway. We need to set up the rules and regulations now. I think staff should come up with a section, wherever it needs to go in this thing, that says, this is what's required. Multifamily housing, this is it. And make it plain that the only setbacks you have, wherever you're building, is the setbacks that are the exterior of the building. For multifamily like condos, and because townhomes, they're rented out. They're not sold for the most part. I mean, down in Charleston, you go rent, and it's townhomes. You rent, there may be 10 apartments in one building. Condos are sold, so therefore you have a property line at each condo. So we need to make this section to state, yes, you can build the condos. You have to follow the setback from the property line on each side, front, back, and all, but the ones dividing each condo, they don't mean a whole lot, just as long as your walls are code. We need to have a section in here, in whatever section, or whatever, where we need to put it, that defines all this stuff, and that makes it easier for the staff. It also, if it's easy for staff, it makes it a whole lot easier for the people that walks in and wants to do this stuff.
So the question becomes is, do we make it, I guess the question that I'm really thinking is, under multifamily, do we say multifamily requires this kind of setback no matter what the zoning is?
No.
Or do we say that we simply write the sentence that says multifamily follows the setbacks of whatever zone they're in, with the understanding that the marriage wall does not apply?
Right, that's what.
Okay, and that's kind of what I was getting at, is we've already got different setbacks for different zonings. Let's don't create a setback for just multifamily. Let's just create a sentence for multifamily.
All of our setbacks in all zoning is pretty much the same. There's not a big difference in any of them. One of them is like 30 feet in the front. I think that's industrial or something. But one of them is, but for the most part, they're all the same. All of the setbacks and all the different categories are pretty much the same setbacks.
Within a ballpark.
Yeah,
certainly.
I mean, there's not a big difference. So we leave those as they are, have the paragraph, I guess it'd have to be, because it don't need to be more than a sentence, that states this is what you have to do, and let it at that. If we don't do it now, if we wait a year, we may already have 15 or 20 or 30 condo places built, you never know, and it's too late to make them do anything. We do it now when there's nothing, and it protects us in the future for this.
And the only other thing that I think that we need, you know, again, in order to be proactive rather than knee-jerk reactive, I don't think it would hurt, okay, if it's in this zone, it meets that zone setbacks, marriage walls do not count. But we should go ahead and address the fact that they do need some outdoor space, they do need some landscaping, and they certainly do need some kind of waste disposal that is covered, protect, you know,
Screened.
we don't need screened, don't need dogs dragging them out, et cetera, et cetera. And that would just simply be a very short, simple multifamily housing.
And that would protect the
Yes, sir.
environment as well, given the green space.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So they're writing a sentence for each zoning that says multifamily, da-da-da-da, falls within guidelines. Also see multifamily rules, and then a series of rules.
For those things.
So if I may, density though requires, we're very low density community, so there's other, the zoning districts don't get really dense by any means. So is the multifamily is married to the underlying zoning district's density? Because control three is wide open, we've established that, but all the other ones have.
It should have its
Well,
own.
they do have a height restriction under all the different zonings, so they'd be limited in height. If we put a percentage of green space, they're gonna be limited in breadth.
Well, I think
By the
that, I
green
think we
space.
actually use the green space more as a way to regulate density, meaning they could make it more dense in one area by allowing X amount of green space. I think if we go back,
And if-
I know we talked about it.
We did, I'm still trying to get my head around.
So, let me finish real quick. If we say X% of green space, that's gonna dictate and predicate on the breadth of the building. We already have a height restriction in every zoning, so that is the height. Make it as dense as you wanna make it, as long as you have a parking space for every resident and the percentage of green space, and that'll dictate the density. I mean, if you can sell a one-bedroom apartment, one-bedroom condo, put 16 units or put 20 on that property, or whatever you want to put on that property, as long as you meet the other guidelines of green space and parking requirements.
But what you're saying is we can't do that now because certain ones say a quarter acre or half acre, right? We can't have but so many per
I think,
acre.
yeah, I think the problem is that without putting these standards and those, I don't know, some zoning districts may not allow multifamily at all, as I recall, I'm not, you know. But the point being that without deciding, having specific standards for this type of development, you can get a little bit of out of kilter a little bit when you try to impose that concept on another zoning district.
So that would restrict somebody from that district, which is fine, because you can't do certain things in Lake
There's some
Residential and things
districts
like
where
that.
you can do multifamily.
So you're gonna have to build within a district that allows for it to be built. But my question is how detailed do we have to make multifamily?
Right.
It either fits or it doesn't fit, based on,
Bring you something that's fairly, let's say conservative, let's say restricted, something that maybe you definitely wouldn't just check off there, and we can remove the things that, as a group, you all feel that are just completely out of context.
well, right now, we're saying multifamily would go in control-free, and that may be one of the few places that it can go unless we change some things out of zoning.
I think we should let staff bring us, just what you're saying. You go ahead and bring us an example or something that we can do, something that makes sense to you. And again, then we can digest it. The next one.
Sounds good to me.
The neighbors is what I'm gonna think of is, I mean, the majority of the public at any given day are from neighbors, not necessarily being neighborly. And I'm just anticipating, 16 units going in right next to a subdivision, next to someone's $1 million home, and everyone else gets rallied. I'm just trying to avoid us putting problems into place, trying to just look down the road of it. So we'll look at some of the areas like the lakes, like traditional rural, only has a very, very light density. and there's plenty of land for putting in multifamily, but it didn't necessarily go with the intent of the district.
Right, which would prohibit it because of its zoning.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't go there
It
to
would go
begin
there
with.
anyway. No.
And that's kind of what I was getting at.
So we'll bring you something to look at, that way we make sure we're on the right track.
Agreeable with that?
We're knocking this out.
Just stop talking so much, we get faster.
Yeah, I'll shut up the rest of the time.
If I, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could, I just want to make sure that that we're on the same page, because it bleeds into the next topic. We may not even need to talk about the next topic, because the planners have that assignment. But, so my question is, of the categories that Mr. Hogan's outlined in that memo, where he talks about, we have setbacks, I think those are covered. Talks about open space, buffers, lighting, recreation areas, density. What categories of those did y'all want them to cover? Was it just open space?
So that's what's up on the board now.
Took some examples from a few counties in the state and used that as examples just to show you kind of what some other people are doing with various issues, right, so associated with group development.
I'd say yes to all of the above, that they need to consider recreation for appropriate to what, you know, if it's obviously a singles multifamily or multi-person development, you'd want a pool versus a playground, but, you know, right? But can you address that? I mean,
It's almost, it's fairly prescriptive, because we don't really know
I know
what's,
it's
what
too
the
much,
market's
but yeah,
getting.
yeah.
But we can say you need to provide recreation spaces per the market, for whatever the developer wants to put in, for his target.
but I think you need to address all of it.
If you go back to the page before that, Anderson, I think, hits, is it other way? There you go. So Anderson has a setback, open space, lighting, lot area, buffers, which is what you were talking about with incompatible uses, I guess, next door, and then recreation area. Have them put something in text that covers all those, and y'all can
Yeah.
scratch through them.
Yeah.
It's interesting to note too about Anderson County is that a lot of Anderson County is performance standards. A lot of the county, like, well, we have control free, but a lot of their counties not zoned at all in terms of traditional zoning. They use performance standards. And that's sort of what you've got in that context is you can do what you want, but when you do it, here are the things we're looking for, especially if you're next to a residential development or something like that. So they try to address it on a case-by-case basis based on those standards.
That's good.
Does that answer what you're looking for, Mr. Rube? Okay. So moving on, then, we have the proposed amendment for moving setback requirements for the general control, for the control-free district from chapter 38 to 32.
Mr. Chairman, so I think
That all kind of rolls into
I
it.
think that we have it covered, I believe, y'all tell me if I'm wrong. So I set out options for y'all, 1, 2, 3, and we discussed these essentially in the same form they're in now, during the last meeting, which was, the first option was just get rid of setbacks in the control-free district. The second one was to move them back over to chapter 32 in one form or another. The third option, and to note that the setback requirements didn't apply to property lines separating individually owned dwelling units, which y'all have been calling the marriage wall or marriage walls. Third option was keep them as they were or as they are now, and then just add that sentence for essentially the marriage walls. And then the fourth option was to go a little bit more further and let's just address group development or multifamily development like you just talked about. So that's the fourth option, and I think that's where you're wanting to go.
That's where we are.
Well, but can you not put the option, what you're going to develop as, add language applicable to multifamily? Or are you gonna make it its own separate one? And then we just leave?
I think depending on how y'all parse it out, if at the end of the day, during the next meeting, if y'all say, hey, we want 20% open space and we don't care about anything else, then I think I can just tack that on perhaps in the control-free or even in other districts that allow for it and get rid of the setback requirements between adjoining units and add in that density requirement, and then I think we're pretty well covered. But if you have more, if you want to keep all that's in Anderson, then I think we probably need to have a separate section and then tie it into the specific districts. Does that make sense? So it's gonna be an outcome of what y'all decide on next meeting, I guess.
And it would leave setbacks in 38 where all the rest of the setbacks are, and leave them in control-free with the other exemptions, I guess.
Correct. And you could decide, of course, we'll bring these options back. So if you want to say, we don't want to do open space and worry about density, let's just let the folks decide and just do control-free and get rid of the setbacks there. So that'll be an option. I mean, that's an easy one, but that's not.
I guess just for our discussion, I think what you're alluding to is that I'm still in favor of there being setbacks within control-free.
I am too.
Just like there are anywhere else.
So that they're where everybody looks.
Yeah, leave
Yep.
them,
Yes.
yeah, put them where all the rest of the setbacks are and leave them, and then make these other changes to where multi-houses or multi-buildings, what you wanna call them, can be built without having to worry about the setback in that, the condos and things.
I have a question. So basically, control-free will not be control-free for multi-housing if we do this. It will be much more restrictive. Multi-housing will be restricted greatly in the control-free zone that's not supposed to be being restricted.
I think there's the possibility if y'all decide we want density requirements to lie in multifamily and you want open space requirements, you want recreation requirements, and all of that, you say thumbs up on all those, then and it's gonna apply in control-free, then it's gonna be it's gonna be less control-free for multifamily in control-free.
But only for multifamily.
But only for multifamily, correct.
But control-free is
But it
not
does at least
control-free
specify.
anyway.
Control-free is not totally
But
control-free.
it does, what it does do in the end is, we don't have, really, without a variance, a means to do multifamily with individual ownership of the units now. I mean, there's no clear way to do that, and I guess it's happened by variance or what have you, but there's no clear way to do it. So it would open up that avenue, but yes, with opening up that avenue, then there's gonna be certain restrictions on it, which makes control-free, I guess, more of a mess.
So before in control-free, you really couldn't do multifamily, and now what we're doing is saying you can,
But with restrictions.
with restriction.
Correct.
And direction.
And directions, that's right.
But as you mentioned before, a lot of developers are gonna do a lot of those elements anyway in the markets we're dealing with. So we're sort of providing them with direction.
Okay?
Someone mentioned the parking requirements. Coming from a place that's all asphalt, like 85% parking, and that's about true in South Florida. I'm a big fan of this, just personally, I would say leaving the parking requirements on there, because for developers who are gonna develop, the amount of parking they need for their space. Like Walmart will always build for Black Friday. That's how they gauge the parking lot. That's 100% how they do it. If they can't park for Black Friday, they're going to the next town over. I've seen a lot of very good amount of space dedicated to parking lots in this area, because we haven't said for every restaurant has to have 1.5 spaces for 27 square feet, and the waitress has her own spot. Like, they were not that restricted on it. So I don't know how you feel about multifamily housing, because there's not a lot of connectivity to other places, so they're not gonna go park in the neighbor's yard kind of thing. So if parking requirements are, as they were mentioned, is that something that you would like to look at right now?
Not necessarily. I was just trying to use it as a way to gauge the density of the units themselves. But if you put a number to it, 16 per acre or something like that, then we've already accomplished that.
We're all good? Okay. Any other comments on that? Okay, so we'll move on to our number 9. Proposed amendment change to remove small area rezoning requirements.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes, sir.
What we had last time was what's noted as small area rezoning option 1. Right, so all I did with that one was to move the rezoning over to small area rezoning, so you could do it parcel by parcel. And so after our discussion last time, y'all, there was a move to think about, oh, well, maybe we don't want it to be that wide open, maybe we need to have a minimum acreage. So the option 2 reads that way. You get to page 4 of option 2. And then Adam put in some possible acreages to plug in there. Again, as Mr. Cotton pointed out, neither option 1 nor option 2 allow for the percentage petition or not all of the owners to sign the petition. It is a unanimous, contiguous means of rezoning. And so that's the framework. And then, so what y'all asked for last time was to give you some acreages as minimums and tie them to some sort of rationale. And that's what Adam did with in the darker red.
At the very bottom.
Do we have a motion to go with one of them?
I move we go with option 1.
We have a second?
Motion on the floor, but no second.
Do it no seconds. We need a second so we can have discussion.
Okay.
So
So
second.
back to discuss, that fails because of no second?
Yes.
Okay. Under the 3 methods, currently, method 1, I guess, like staff's opinion of if that's necessary to keep.
Sorry, I didn't catch all that.
Method 1, staff's opinion, is that necessary to have in here?
I hadn't really addressed it since it wasn't the reason why we were looking at it. It seems that it was created with some kind of rationale involved. I really haven't put too much thought into it because it hasn't been really brought up.
Is it,
The
Does anybody know
rationale
if
there is that's the only option, that nobody gets dragged into a zoning situation against their will.
Can, option 3 leaves it open for us to put in an acreage,
Option 2?
or,
Number 2.
yeah, maybe 2,
I just want to make sure we're talking.
whichever one it is.
I just put another option in there.
But leaves us an opening to put in a specific amount. It is my opinion that the 200-acre requirement is excessive at this time. It did its job, but it also causes problems with only requiring 51% of the people to sign the petition that own 75% of the land, therefore taking 25%. Whether the people wanted zoned or not, and that's what caused the county all the trouble. I think we should have a 50-acre minimum and require every single property owner, and it is not that hard. You come to register of deeds or assessors and you look up who owns the property, there's their address, you send them a letter. But every owner should be required to sign that petition. That will alleviate somebody coming up here, I didn't sign it. Well, sir, right here's your name on this paper. You did sign it. Now, you can back out, but you did sign the original petition. If they can't get all the signatures, then there's other options. They can confront council, ask the council to do it without the petition on, what was that? The method 3? Council, someone can talk to the council and they can initiate it, bam, it's done. But this gives smaller areas, our average lot size, our average acreage in control free is 5.8 acres. You get 10 of those guys, 10 of your people that lives around you, they all sign the petition, and that's all you have to do. If someone don't live in that area, you, like I said, go to the assessor or register of deeds or wherever you gotta go to find out the address of where these people are at, send them a letter, and they can do it. It was done when we did agriculture. 100% of the people signed a lot of those. And there was a lot of people that lived somewhere else. The group that wanted to be zoned got out and did the legwork. So that's my opinion.
When you say 100%, are you saying 100% of property owners or 100% of the names on the deed?
100% of the people who petitioned for the rezone.
So in other words, are you saying one signature per property or, okay, as opposed to 4 people that may own?
Well, that was kind of an unusual thing because most of them did not have multiple owners.
Well, I mean, I know a property in the Fairplay Oakway area. As it stands now, it's got 4 owners, 4 people's on a deed. But these people also talk and say one of them wants to be zoned. He talks to the other 3. If they're in agreement, then he signs it. They don't have to sign it, but if they're not in agreement, he's not gonna do it anyway. I mean, if there's more than one owner or more than one name on the deed, believe me, they're gonna talk and decide whether they wanna be zoned. They're not just gonna let one guy go in there and zone.
Not necessarily. If you have a inheritance issue where siblings have inherited this property and they don't have the same vision for this property, one of them may say that they want to sign, and one of them may say that they don't.
But if they don't, then they have to go another route.
That's why he's saying 100% signature.
I'm saying 100% signatures. If all 4 of them want it zoned, they sign the darn paper. If they don't sign, then they have to talk to council. 200 acres is way too much land. That worked in its time. But getting only 51% of the people to sign the petition that owns 75% of the property, what about the 25% over here that's getting zoned where they want it or not? They have no choice.
But Gwen said one owner per property.
Well,
No, I said that was the case under the easement that, I mean,
Okay.
under the application that was put in. Now, that's not always true, I know that, but under the one that went in, that we had 100% of the signatures, they were all one owner.
And I'm just asking, I mean, I've got a property that there are 32 of us that own these 4 square miles. And getting 32 people to agree on anything is completely impossible.
But how many acres is that?
It's a bunch. 4 square miles.
But the thing is, why should, okay, say 51% of y'all want to be zoned. And y'all own 75% of the property.
No, well,
the other
yes.
people that own that property are gonna get zoned whether they want it or not, and that's not right. That's how this county got sued before, is people taking a circumference here and going, well, 51% and 75, yeah, we got everybody, we're taking these right over here, and they didn't wanna be zoned, or didn't wanna be zoned that classification. If everybody in that area has to sign that petition, then everybody's in agreement. There's no problem. You present it to staff, they present it to or us, we present it to council, it goes through, no big deal. But you shouldn't take that 25% of that property and say, we don't really care what you think, we're gonna zone you what the 51% want to be zoned.
So what would you propose then, if it's not 200 acres, what would you propose be the appropriate acreage?
I think it should go down as low as 50 acres. That will give some of the smaller, with the average size of a control-free being 5.8 acres, that would give, you'd have to have about 10 people, or maybe 32 that has this, or, 1 acres but.
All contiguous?
All contiguous.
In whatever fashion you want, if it was an L or?
It don't matter if it's a circle or a square or a big Y, as long as all of them are there, and everybody that has to sign that petition. Because what if there's not 200 acres?
Why do you feel like Oconee County should be the only county in South Carolina that has an acreage requirement?
I personally don't care one way or the other, except for the 200 acres, it's too large. But I just think the average, to keep some of the people from fussing about, oh God, you turned it loose. You set an acreage, because it's gonna eventually have to be changed again. We're gonna get down to the point to where people only have 1.2 acres. So it's gonna have to be lowered, but I think 50 is a good standard right at this time. And that will alleviate what everybody has been calling a rush to get zoned. If we're already, everybody that wants zoning is pretty much zoned already. The ones that want zoning now can't get it because they're like me. I got 3 acres. If I wanted to be zoned, I can't do anything about it. I'll just have to stay what I am.
We've had zoning here for a while, and we're still only 20% zoned.
Then we're not gonna,
That means 80% of the landholders in this county don't want to be zoned.
then lowering it down to 50 is not gonna hurt anything either way.
Is that an accurate statement? Because we're actually, everything is zoned.
Yeah, the whole county is zoned, but how much is it that's?
Control free district represents the majority of it. That's very low restraints for certain. So you could say ostensibly you don't really have very much zoning. There is height, there is setbacks, and there's.
Well, what is the percentage of control free versus all the rest of the zoning? So basically, just off the top of your head, give me a number.
So, which I would agree is the 80% fee that you threw out.
So 85 is not, if you wanna say it not zoned, and the rest of it is.
Would you say that there should be no number? If somebody's control-free and they want to zone themselves into something so that they could create a commercial, multi-use residential neighborhood, that there should be no.
What I think is we should not have a situation where a group of neighbors or an individual can force others into a zone that they don't want to be in.
And that's why the
That's
100%
why-
signatures.
If you go to 0 acreage, then you can bring 5 or 6 lots into a zone without having to encompass neighbors that don't want to go in.
But to me, that's not good planning, when we're the planning commission.
That's
If
what
we
the-
have a very small area that wants to be zoned separately around a large area, that puts a different use in a small area.
We're in a
Well,
county that does not want
theoretically,
zoning
to
at
the
all.
absurd, you have a community, and inside the community is a 6-acre tract that the developer never sold, and now all of a sudden he wants to put a commercial building there, and he's got enough acres to do so. So yes, I would agree that doing it too small wouldn't be too,
It would be the same thing as control free. I mean, you wouldn't.
it wouldn't be the
zoned. You would be
direction that the
doing
planning
nothing to
commission should be
protect
going. So we
an
want to have
area.
some kind of number in there.
So that's
would
why I
think.
said 50 acres, requiring everyone to sign the petition. That's large enough, and it's not gonna, they can't drag anybody else in it. It don't matter what they do, they can own, them 50 people that own that 50 acres, sign that paper, each one of them owns an acre. They can't go over here to Aunt Betsy's and drag hers in just 'cause it touches it. They've already got their 50 signatures, they've got their 50 acres. They can't drag anybody else. The way it's set up now, they can.
But say you have 2 people, one owns 48 acres and one owns 3. Now
Then-
you have 51 acres and you have 2 people, and now
Then both of them have to sign a
they have
petition.
zoned something right in the middle of another area that people don't want, and those other people can't stop it because both,
Both those people have signed, does that mean they
Well, that's-
automatically
is that
get it,
not-
or that?
Well, I was
they
gonna
go-
say, is that not county council's job?
You don't automatically
Then you
get
put that
anything.
One at a
petition
time, one at a
up.
time.
You put that petition up if that's what you're asking for. And county council, cause all we're doing is asking. You know, when a citizen asks, that's all they're doing is asking. They're saying, I would like to be considered for this zone. Then it's county council's job to look at the surrounding area, to look at the future land use map and say, yes, this fits, or no, this does not fit, and then either approve it or decline it.
Right.
Make a
But do
motion.
we-
I'll vote.
But are we not opening up for county council a tremendous amount of work for them if, they have to, have 50 acres brought up to them over and over and over again? Where I think it was what he was saying, it was supposed to be, the 200 acres so that we don't put that burden on them to where they're continuously being bombarded by rezoning
Yeah,
requests.
I don't believe there's gonna be that much
We're
of
not gonna have a big bombardment of rezoning, because if we was, people would be getting together, and they would already have their
We're supposed to
200
be
acres.
looking at the future, is what y'all
And-
just
But I'm
kept
just saying.
saying. We don't know that that's not
In
gonna
my
happen.
research today, I looked at Anderson County. In 2016, they had 5 requests. 4 were approved, 1 was denied,
And they have no requirements.
and they have no requirements. So I don't really see there being a burden of people rushing into having rezonings.
Method 2. All right, I would like to make a motion that we change method 2 to put in the 50 acres, and to state that all property owners have to sign the paper, the petition.
If I could just restate your motion, Mr. Pearson, if you look at option 2, that was drafted, that's the language that I believe you're referring to, that requires unanimity of all holders of the legal interest to sign. It requires contiguity, and then in the blank, in 2A on page 4, I think, of your document, in option 2, you're gonna plug in 50 acres, at least 50 acres.
Correct.
That would be your motion, which would be to move to, send forward to county council, small area rezoning option 2 with 50 acres plugged into the minimum ownership.
Correct.
That's your motion?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
And I want to make sure I'm looking at, go ahead.
Okay, so
We
we
got
have
a first
seconds,
and
so we're up for discussion.
I'm trying to make sure where I'm in the right. Does staff see that to accomplish what is trying to be accomplished here, that this is the correct option to put that in?
There's not there's really not a magic number.
If we're simply trying to adjust the number and adjust the number that's signing, does that work within where we're trying to put it?
Control freeze district was probably, this is just my impression, I wasn't here when it happened. It was not intended initially to be the final analysis of what zoning would be in the county. It was kind of a holding pattern. So with that in mind, I'm not sure, what we're dealing with, but you're probably not gonna have a lot of requests.
Right, and that's,
Have any requests in the future.
but are we legally putting it in the right location?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I believe you are, and I think you're making it a little bit easier to rezone out of control free. It does have the impediment that Mr. Codner discussed at the beginning of getting everyone to sign off on, which is difficult. At the same time, that is a benefit, as Mr. Pearson noted, for a lot of folks who think, all right, well, I'm not gonna get swept up. Even by my fellow property owners on whomever. So there's 2 sides of that coin, which y'all gotta decide what you like better. But it will make it, at least as far as the acreage goes, certainly will make that easier.
I mean, I think it provides equal protections, or lots of protections for both. People that don't want it, go around the next way.
Any other discussion?
Would you entertain a friendly amendment to change that to 100 acres versus 50?
I would.
And leave it at 100%?
It's gonna make it more
I
difficult.
think that number's more comfortable.
Compromise at 75?
Can you get 100 acres of signatures? I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
I'm just looking at 50, somebody could own 49.9 acres and they just want one other person. I mean, it still has to go through the
Yeah.
process, but it would make more parcels of land in the process, at least more parcels, more people, more continuity.
Yeah, the larger section of land you select, the more really you're planning for the future.
And that's
Definitely.
ultimately what we're here for.
The more signatures you require, the more you're protecting the people who don't want to be included in the first place. So, but on the other hand, the more land you require, the less likely you are to get people who buy into the idea of using zoning as a method of protection versus restriction.
And that does bring up a really good point. County council has not taken the political step of saying, we're going to zone stuff. They've actually taken an opposite stance in some cases and said, you can't zone even if you all want to zone in a certain way. And so by reducing that number would allow people that are wanting to zone in a certain way to be able to do that.
I'm just trying to make the threshold a little bit higher for better planning, more continuity, and make it a little bit tougher because people have bought their property under certain pretense of the surrounding area. And 100 acres spreads that area out just a little bit more than 50 acres does. And it
That
prevents,
actually makes sense.
it prevents one or two rogue people from trying to do something that's not necessarily, I mean, they'd still have to go through county council, but, you know, they could go through and then use. You know,
I think
kind of
that
changes.
makes sense.
Just doing a petition does not mean you're gonna get what you want.
I understand.
The reason I was like the 50 acres is it's easier with requiring everyone sign the petition. It's easier to get a small number of people to sign than it is if you've got 100 people, because there's 100 acres there. It's harder to get 100 people to sign that petition than it is to get 50 to sign it.
Well, that's if you have 100 people in exactly 1 acre.
Well, but but you just go to the high side. I mean, yeah, there's gonna be 25, because you gotta remember, 5.8 acres is the average.
I understand.
So even if it's 5 acres, everybody owns 5 acres, you still gotta get, what, 20 people to do 100 acres? Where you wouldn't have to have but maybe 3.
Or 10.
Or 10.
If they own the average, that would take 10 signatures.
Yeah, 10 signatures, so you
This does still allow for you to go
You still have to go
to
to
and
council.
ask council anyway.
You have to ask council. They have to approve the ordinance, there's no doubt.
council can, you can talk to a councilman and they can initiate it, or you can do the petition. I
So do
just
you
think-
accept his amendment?
I'd like to see the 100 acres and do it.
I don't.
think. Okay.
I mean, y'all can vote it down or whatever, I think the 50 acres is.
I think what you want now is Mr. Kisker to make a motion to amend the ordinance change of minimum acreage from 50 to 100.
My motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
There's a second. Any other discussion on that? And we'll go for a vote on that. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Not two.
So that passes. So the motion on the floor now is to adopt option number 2 with minimum acreage of 100. Discussing some more.
No, that's,
No, we're done.
would, okay. Well, we had the vote.
You had a vote.
You have to vote to amend it. Now it's amended.
Oh, I see. Okay. So do we have the motion to accept?
So now we are voting on the amended,
Okay.
Is the
Proposal.
amended.
So we just have to have the vote now.
Exactly.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? 2, 5 to 2. Approved.
I will draft that and have it to council for the September 5th.
And I will speak against it.
At this time, is there any old business? Any new business?
Yeah, just real quick, because I know it's late. If, you know, I know like 50 to 75 pages is not normal. But that's a lot for us to all print out. So, I mean, to me, you know, I'm not trying to be cheap and what have you, but if we're gonna have a packet this big, if you could mail it, that'd be great. I'd be happy to come pick it up, but I'm replacing paper and toner like crazy lately. And,
Not a problem. I just did so big for the recording.
Yeah.
I know people like print off, write it.
yeah, I mean, I can't sit there and read a computer for an hour and a half going through this. I gotta,
I can,
Be
I
doing
don't know
something
if I have everyone's address, so I'll also shoot y'all an email tomorrow for address for the larger package.
the other thing too, I know y'all had the 6 hours for the new people, but I don't think we've had 3 hours for
For
existing.
refresher?
And I don't wanna be.
Continuing education? Do we need to have that?
I'll ask Katie about the case, about that.
Yeah.
I believe you should have all the addresses, because your
Your
previous predecessor mailed everything, and then it was a request by us to go to email, but now we're reverting that request and going back to snail mail.
And just in case you didn't know that they did, rather than us going anywhere or you hiring somebody, they did actually develop their own in-house continuing education last year for us, which we just conducted after what was a short meeting, when the agenda wasn't loaded.
It was painful, but we did.
It was terribly painful. At least we weren't driving to Greenville or.
Yeah.
We did a few hours course here from,
Supposed to be a 6-hour course.
Yeah, it was a tough course too.
And if you want to shorten our 3-hour one, then it's
Yeah.
dinner, you know.
I just don't wanna
proportional
I don't wanna
would
get
be
down
fine,
in December and then have to do it in December.
Yeah, it was a tough course we had to go through.
Well, is there any other new business at this point? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move to adjourn.
Okay, thank you.
We got through a lot of information.
We got through a lot of information and we're only
Yeah, but it-
15
yeah.
minutes late, right? So we're only 15 minutes late.
Not too bad.
That's, I thought it was 7:45.
Not accomplished.
Good job.
Thank you. See ya. See y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for putting it through. Cool. You hit the first.
For council, I'm not trying to get this shot down. I think it should be 50. And I think I can get at least 3 of them over it.
Yeah, I know you can.
I've got 2.
So the question is, if county council shoots it down, are they gonna shoot it down? You're gonna wanna make sure they shoot it down and say, we would like to see it less, because if they shoot it down, otherwise it would stay to the
So I just think,
Can they not just change it?
no, they would probably have to come back to us. I just think the 50 is.
So you would want them to shoot it down with the directive to reduce it?
But I want something through so that they have to take action.
Yeah.
But I like the 50. I mean, I'm a preserver, but I like the 50.
Because it makes it easier. Adam,
sir.
Can you recycle?
it just makes it
No,
easier.
nothing personal, but we appreciate you printing it.
Not a problem.
Yeah, here you go. I've got all that on mine.
That's gonna make the paper.
I don't disagree.
Oh,
I'm not going to
I'm
vote.
talking to Ted, I haven't done that at
There
all.
were no
Commission
votes.
members stop by and
And I
see me
wanted to
throughout the
go
course of the week.
for
I
it.
don't know, I mean,
So
honestly,
you
if you all
go
have
to
any
council
time at all
and
to come
say,
stop
we'd
by,
like,
or if you'd like for us to come and see you all to have a little powwow at any given point about any of the topics, it's really helpful. Like, this was, the 15 pages of ordinance were only successful because I had a lot of input at the last meetings and people just not said hi. So, I mean, this ran really smoothly. I think that we knocked through a lot of this really quickly. So the more input we can get, so if you're like, oh, you know what, I have an idea and I'm passionate, or if you want us to come over to you at any
Well,
given
I
time,
like to
great
do
meeting.
drive.
Like, well,
We can do that.
Like I said, legally, we can't all get together. We can't come in and chit chat, it's gotta be like 2 people or something like that.
That's right, we can't establish a quorum, but if it's just you and us, that's perfect. No issue whatsoever.
Well,
that's why they.
Yeah, whatever input you want.
Well, good. To be honest with you, this is my 3rd year for the county. And now it finally feels like there's good staff.
That was my
And
Nope.
Then when they were starting their zone.
I think we're on a good.
Take care.
I appreciate it.
Just don't back up and leave now.
No, I'm here. I appreciate you all saying I should get a raise.
On Haywood Road, across from the mall, looking for a place.
We'll see y'all.
I pulled into this one bunch of buildings, then I had to go back out.